Have you noticed how one comment, one look, or one message can ruin your entire mood? Stoics believed this wasn't weakness. It was misplaced control. Today, I'll show you how to stop giving people power over your emotions without becoming cold, aggressive, or detached. Epictetus once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit." It's an uncomfortable idea, but it's also liberating because it means no one takes your emotional control. You hand it over, and the moment you understand how this happens, you can stop it. 1. Emotional control is given, not taken. Most people live with a quiet illusion that other people cause their emotions. He made me angry. She embarrassed me. They ruined my mood. Stoics rejected this completely. They believed nothing outside of you has direct access to your emotional state. What actually happens is more subtle and more powerful. An event occurs, a word is spoken, a look is given, and then your mind interprets it. That interpretation, not the event itself, creates the emotion. This is why two people can experience the same situation and feel completely different things. One feels insulted, another feels indifferent. One feels threatened, another feels amused. The difference is not the event, it's the judgment. Epictetus explained it clearly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. When someone insults you, the insult itself is just sound. It becomes anger only when your mind says, "This should not have happened. This disrespects me. This means something about my worth." That moment, right there, is when control is handed over, not taken. This is why emotionally reactive people are easy to manipulate. Anyone who can predict your reactions can steer your behavior. If they know criticism angers you, they'll use it. If they know silence unsettles you, they'll withdraw. If they know disrespect provokes you, they'll bait you. But here is the Stoic advantage. You can interrupt this process. You don't have to accept every interpretation your mind offers. You don't have to agree with every emotional impulse. The moment you question the judgment, the emotion weakens. You move from reaction to awareness, from awareness to choice, and from choice to freedom. Stoics didn't aim to feel nothing, they aimed to feel only what was earned. When you stop giving automatic meaning to other people's behavior, they lose the ability to control how you feel. You don't become numb, you become sovereign. And sovereignty over your emotions is the first step toward real power. 2. People trigger you where you are. Unresolved. Stoics believed that nothing outside of you can disturb you unless something inside of you is already unsettled. This is a difficult truth, but a freeing one, because it means people don't control your emotions randomly. They touch unfinished areas within you. If criticism ignites anger, there is uncertainty. If disrespect cuts deeply, there is unprotected self-worth. If rejection feels unbearable, there is attachment. Stoics did not see triggers as weaknesses. They saw them as signals, a signal that something needs attention, not suppression. When someone's words linger in your mind, it's not because they were powerful. It's because they connected to something unresolved. This is why the same insult can devastate one person and bounce off another. The difference is not toughness, it is clarity. A person who knows who they are is not shaken by noise. But when identity is fragile, outside opinions feel threatening. Stoics taught that unresolved emotions create open doors. People step through those doors not intentionally, but inevitably. This is why emotionally reactive people often attract repeated provocation, not because the world is cruel, but because sensitivity advertises itself. Here is the Stoic discipline. When you are triggered, do not rush to defend yourself. Investigate. Ask, why did this bother me? What belief was challenged? What fear was touched? This turns emotional pain into self-knowledge. Instead of blaming others, you refine yourself. And the moment you resolve that inner conflict, the trigger disappears. Not because people stop trying, but because there is nothing left to grip. This is how Stoics become unshakable. They don't demand respect. They develop clarity. They don't chase emotional safety. They build inner stability. And inner stability is the only protection that cannot be taken away. 3. Reacting instantly is the real trap. The fastest way to lose control of your emotions is to react immediately. Stoics understood that the moment between what happens and how you respond is the most important space in your life. Most people never enter that space. Someone speaks, they react. Someone criticizes, they defend. Someone disrespects, they explode. And in that instant reaction, control is lost. Not because the situation was powerful, but because there was no pause. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you delay response. That delay is not hesitation, it is mastery. Because when you react instantly, you are no longer choosing, you are obeying impulse. Impulses are easy to manipulate. Anyone who can predict your reactions can guide your emotions and influence your behavior. This is why toxic people provoke quickly. They want speed. They want emotion before reason arrives. But Stoics trained themselves to slow the moment down. They learned to feel the emotion without expressing it immediately. Anger rises, pause. Embarrassment appears, pause. The urge to defend yourself, pause. That pause breaks the trap. In that pause, you regain authorship of your response. You ask, is this worth my energy? Is this true? Is this necessary? Most emotional manipulation fails when you refuse to rush. Silence disarms provocation. Calm dissolves pressure. Time exposes manipulation. This is why calm people feel powerful, not because they suppress emotion, but because they decide when emotion earns expression. Reacting instantly feels natural, but it is not strength. Restraint feels uncomfortable at first, but it builds authority. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you reinforce a new identity. I am not ruled by impulse. And once you become someone who cannot be rushed emotionally, people lose their ability to control you. Because control requires speed, and you have learned to slow the moment down. That is Stoic freedom. 4. Calm is not weakness, it is authority. Most people mistake calmness for passivity. Stoics knew better. Calm is not the absence of strength, it is strength under control. A reactive person is easy to dominate. A calm person is not. When someone cannot disturb your emotional state, they lose leverage over you. This is why emotionally reactive people often feel threatened by calm ones. Your calm removes their advantage. It tells them, you cannot rush me. You cannot bait me. You cannot force a reaction. Calm creates space, and space is where authority lives. Stoics believed authority does not come from volume, intensity, or aggression. It comes from self-command. A person who controls their breath, their tone, their expressions, and their reactions signals something powerful. I am governed from within. People feel this immediately. They slow down around you. They choose words more carefully. They sense boundaries without you announcing them. Calm also protects clarity. When emotions run high, judgment collapses. But when you remain composed, you can see the situation clearly. Who is provoking, who is insecure, what matters, and what does not. This is why calm people often win conflicts without escalating them, not because they dominate, but because they outlast emotional chaos. Stoics never argued to win reactions. They spoke to preserve truth. Your calm tells the world you are not desperate to be understood, not threatened by disagreement, and not controlled by noise. And that confidence, quiet, steady, unforced, creates authority without effort. People do not respect calm people because they are soft. They respect them because calm people are unmovable. And nothing is more powerful than a person who cannot be shaken. 5. You don't need to attend every emotional invitation. Not every comment is an attack. Not every opinion is a challenge. Not every provocation deserves a response. Stoics understood something most people learn too late. Every emotional reaction is an invitation to argue, an invitation to defend yourself, an invitation to feel offended, an invitation to give your energy away. And the mistake most people make is accepting every invitation automatically. When someone criticizes you, you feel pulled to explain. When someone disrespects you, you feel pressured to respond. When someone misunderstands you, you feel the urge to correct them. But Stoic discipline begins when you realize this. You are not obligated to respond to everything. Your energy is finite, your attention is valuable, and not every interaction deserves access to it. Stoics practiced selective engagement. They chose carefully. What deserves a response? What deserves silence? What deserves distance? Silence, in this sense, is not avoidance. It is discernment, because responding to everything keeps you emotionally reactive. Choosing when not to respond keeps you sovereign. Many people provoke not to seek truth, but to pull you into emotional labor. They want your frustration, your explanation, your justification. When you refuse to engage, their strategy collapses. You don't argue, you don't defend, you don't escalate, you conserve energy. And here's the deeper truth. The more selective you become, the more weight your responses carry. When you speak less, your words matter more. When you react less, your calm feels stronger. People begin to sense that access to your emotional world is earned, not automatic. Stoics didn't silence themselves out of fear. They did it out of wisdom. They knew that mastery is not shown by how much you react, but by how much you can let pass without being disturbed. And when you stop attending every emotional invitation, people lose the ability to control how you feel, because control requires participation, and you've learned how to decline. 6. Detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. Most people misunderstand detachment. They think it means you stop caring, that you become distant, cold, or emotionally numb. Stoics meant the opposite. Detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the absence of emotional dependency. When you are attached, other people's moods decide your mood. Their approval decides your confidence. Their behavior decides your peace. That is not connection. That is vulnerability without boundaries. Stoic detachment begins when you separate what is yours from what is not. Your thoughts are yours. Your values are yours. Your actions are yours. Other people's emotions are not. Their anger does not belong to you. Their insecurity is not your responsibility. Their opinions do not define your worth. This clarity changes everything. You can listen without absorbing. You can care without carrying. You can be present without being pulled under. Stoics trained themselves to stand emotionally upright in the presence of emotional storms, not by shutting down, but by staying rooted. Detachment allows you to respond instead of react, to observe instead of absorb, to choose instead of obey. And here is the quiet power of detachment. When you stop emotionally clinging, people lose leverage over you. Manipulation fails because you don't fear disapproval. Provocation fails because you don't need validation. Pressure fails because your self-worth is not negotiable. This does not make you uncaring, it makes you unshakable. You still feel compassion, you still understand others, but you no longer sacrifice your inner stability to manage their emotional state. Stoics believed that peace comes from knowing where your responsibility ends. And when you honor that boundary, your emotions return to their rightful place, under your command. Detachment is not retreat. It is emotional independence. And emotional independence is one of the highest forms of freedom a human can achieve. 7. The moment you take responsibility, control ends. This is the Stoic turning point. As long as you believe other people control your emotions, you will feel powerless. But the moment you accept full responsibility for your inner state, control ends. Not theirs, yours. Stoics taught something radical for their time. You are responsible for how you interpret events, not for the events themselves. This does not mean others are always right. It means your peace is no longer hostage. When you say, "They made me angry," you give power away. When you say, "I chose how to respond," you take it back. Responsibility is uncomfortable at first because it removes excuses. You can no longer blame moods, people, or circumstances for how you feel. But that discomfort is freedom in disguise. Because once responsibility is yours, so is control. You stop waiting for people to change so you can feel better. You stop demanding fairness from a world that has never promised it. You stop negotiating your peace with unpredictable humans. Instead, you ask, what part of this is mine? What judgment did I make? What meaning did I attach? And with those questions, you regain authorship of your emotional life. This is why Stoics were unshakable in chaotic environments. They did not expect others to be calm, reasonable, or kind. They expected themselves to be disciplined. When you take responsibility for your emotions, insults lose their sting, manipulation loses leverage, provocation loses urgency, not because people stop trying, but because there is nothing left to control. You become internally governed, and an internally governed person cannot be emotionally dominated. This is not emotional suppression, it is emotional ownership. You feel, but you decide. You experience, but you interpret. You are affected, but not ruled. And once you reach this point, people may still speak, still judge, still provoke, but they no longer decide how you feel about yourself. That authority belongs to you, and that is the end of emotional control. 8. Build an inner standard, so no one else sets it for you. The final reason people control your emotions is simple and uncomfortable. You don't yet have a fixed inner standard. When your values are unclear, outside opinions become loud. When your self-worth is negotiable, other people start negotiating it for you. Stoics believed emotional freedom begins when you decide, in advance, what truly matters. Not what others think, not how others react, not what gets approval, but what you stand for. An inner standard means you know what behavior you tolerate. You know what deserves your energy. You know what opinions are irrelevant. And most importantly, you don't decide these things in the heat of emotion. You decide them beforehand. Without an inner standard, every situation feels personal. Every criticism feels threatening. Every disagreement feels destabilizing. But with one, clarity replaces confusion. Someone insults you. You measure it against your values, not your ego. Someone disapproves. You check alignment, not popularity. Someone provokes. You ask, does this deserve access to my inner world? Most of the time, the answer is no. This is why Stoics were so hard to provoke. They weren't emotionally numb. They were internally organized. They knew who they were. They knew what they were working toward. And they refused to let unstable people interrupt stable principles. When your inner standard is strong, other people's emotions stop feeling urgent. Their anger becomes noise. Their opinions become weather. Their behavior becomes information, not instruction. And that is the final level of emotional independence. You stop living reactively. You stop calibrating yourself to others. You stop outsourcing your peace. Because once your values are clear, your emotions fall into place naturally, not suppressed, not denied, but guided. And when your inner world is guided by principle, no one else gets to steer it. That is the end of emotional control. 9. Practice emotional discipline. Daily, not only when you're triggered. The final step to emotional freedom is understanding this. Emotional control is not a reaction skill. It is a daily practice. Most people try to be calm only when they are already upset. Stoics trained themselves before pressure arrived. They knew that in the heat of emotion, it is too late to build discipline. You can only use what you have already built. This is why Stoics practiced daily reflection, mental rehearsal, voluntary discomfort, and conscious restraint, not to become rigid, but to become prepared. Emotional discipline is like strength training for the mind. You don't wait until an emergency to build muscle. You build it quietly, consistently, so it's there when you need it. Each day, Stoics asked themselves, what disturbed me today? What judgment did I make? What could I have handled better? Not with self-criticism, but with honesty. Over time, this practice rewires your reactions. You begin to notice emotions earlier. You pause sooner. You choose responses more deliberately. And slowly, something changes. Situations that once controlled you no longer feel urgent. People who once provoked you lose their grip. Not because you hardened yourself, but because you trained yourself. This is the Stoic secret most people miss. Emotional freedom is not a breakthrough moment. It is the result of quiet repetition, small pauses, small acts of restraint, small moments of awareness, repeated daily. And one day, without realizing it, you notice something profound. People still speak, situations still arise, life still applies pressure, but your inner world remains steady. Because discipline has replaced impulse, clarity has replaced chaos, and self-governance has replaced reactivity. This is the final form of control, not control over others, but control over yourself. And the person who has mastered that has nothing left to fear from the opinions, moods, or behavior of anyone else. 10. Choose inner freedom every single time. At the deepest level, emotional control is a choice, not a one-time decision, but a daily commitment. Every day, life presents you with the same question: will I give this moment my peace or my power? Stoics understood that freedom is not found by controlling people, situations, or outcomes. It is found by controlling your response. You will still encounter disrespect. You will still hear opinions you don't like. You will still face moments designed to provoke you. But now you see them clearly. They are not commands. They are not threats. They are not instructions. They are opportunities. Opportunities to pause instead of react, to choose principle over impulse, to protect your inner world. Inner freedom does not mean nothing affects you. It means nothing owns you. You feel emotion, but you don't surrender to it. You experience pressure, but you don't let it dictate your character. This is what Stoics meant by mastery. Not emotional numbness, not detachment from life, but alignment between who you are, what you value, and how you respond. When you choose inner freedom consistently, something remarkable happens. Your emotions stabilize, your confidence deepens, your presence becomes calm and unshakable. People may still try to provoke you, but they find no access, because your inner world is no longer open to negotiation. And that is the final Stoic lesson. You don't escape the world to find peace. You carry peace with you into every moment. That is emotional sovereignty. That is freedom. Conclusion. The world will always try to pull at your emotions. People will test you. Words will be spoken. Pressure will appear. Stoicism was never about stopping this. It was about deciding who controls your inner world. When you stop reacting automatically, when you pause, choose, and take responsibility, your emotions return to their rightful place, under your command. You don't need to harden your heart. You don't need to fight everyone. You simply need to govern yourself. And the person who governs themselves cannot be ruled by others. That is emotional freedom. If you want more Stoic lessons that strengthen your mind and protect your emotional independence, subscribe to NexusMind, because the calmest person in the room is always the one in control.